You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Find a couple dollars and almost use that as I say seed money, but use it as the money that you're going to use to try and find the investors, if that makes sense at all. Almost like find a little bit of money just to be able to give yourself a month or 2 months to send emails all day and make phone calls all day and connect dots. Like, these are dots. I wasn't in film where I just called up a film producer and they said, I want to back your movie, right? I was in music, and I knew somebody in music that had been involved in some musicals in the UK. So I knew they were involved in theatrical projects, right? I had a bit of a relationship with them. So it was outside the box. And I think in this day and age, that's the only way to find.
Hey everyone, thanks again for hitting that play button. This is another episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast. Well, to start off my morning, I got some bad news as Twitter has turned me down for a verified profile again. And I'm not sure why they keep doing it, but I'm going to keep nagging them until they give me that verified profile. I want to say thank you to 2 iTunes reviewers. I want to say thank you to Joe Kozlowski, who is Pudgy Joe. I'm actually going to be a guest on his podcast, Can You Not, coming out this upcoming week. And we're going to talk all about podcasting. And, Joe actually just left a 5-star review of the podcast on iTunes. And as did user JKL Mr. 123. I'm not sure who that is, but I want to say thank you for the very, very nice review and the 5-star review. And, if you like an episode, everyone, please review the show on iTunes, as it helps us in rankings and it allows me to keep getting more and more guests. Also, I want to give a shout out to Todd Matthews and Rudy at Kessler Comics for their Twitter questions for this episode. And I also want to give a special thank you to Todd for all his shout outs. Todd has actually been listening to every single episode one by one, so he has had to listen to me for about 118 episodes thus far, if he's made it all the way through, and he's not wanted to jump off a bridge. So Todd, God bless you, man. So for this week, I just want to talk about a little bit what I'm doing, because I know some of you are wondering what I'm up to. And Article 3 of How to Podcast is up right now, where I actually go over film guests and how to get guests for your podcasts. And Article 4 will be up this coming week, and I'm going to talk about how to actually interview your guests. This is a whole free blog article series that I'm doing that I'm actually going to build into a course on Skillshare or Udemy. And I'm also taking 2 screenwriting courses at the same time. I signed up for Jim Uhl's screenwriting course after hearing him on Alex Ferrari's Indie Film Hustle, and I also had signed up for Aaron Sorkin's screenwriting class, as soon as it was announced, and they just last night, which was Saturday night, just announced that you could get early access to it. So now I'm sort of straddling the 2 of those courses, trying to get through them. Aaron's course has about 35 classes, and Jim's course is probably about 30. So I'm going to just go through both of them. And by next episode 120, I'm actually going to talk about both of their courses. I'm going to talk about what I've learned and make a recommendation of what you should take if you're interested in screenwriting courses, because I've taken a hell of a lot of screenwriting courses. Also, an article I wrote about social media for crowdfunding is up on Alex Ferrari's Indie Film Hustle website. I'll link to that in the show notes. And as far as what I'm watching, I got into Stranger Things on Netflix. It actually reminds me of a script I'm working on, which is kind of a throwback to those 80s horror movies, and I really hope that we see more of this, because quite frankly, I'm out of this whole CGI thing. I really like, that feel of those 80s horror movies that were, there is a serious danger, but at the same time, it's got that retro feel to it. It's great. So if you haven't checked it out, Stranger Things on Netflix. And on this week's episode of the Dave Bullis Podcast, our guest is the frontman and founder of the rock band Army of Freshmen. He's an actor and screenwriter. His comedy film The Bent releases this coming Tuesday, July the 26th, 2016, and it'll be available on everywhere. It'll be available on Hulu. It'll be available on Google Play Store, iTunes Store, Xbox, PlayStation, all that good stuff. So this is episode 119 with guest Chris J.
You're listening to the Dave Bullis Podcast.
Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm very, very happy to be here. And I'm going to correct you right out of the gate. I definitely don't star in this. I don't think anybody would want or need that. But I did throw myself in there because I figured if I never make another movie again, I'll probably kick myself in 20 years if I can't show my kid, like, there's your old man, you know?
Yeah, I usually just say star. I mean, usually it's, I don't know what else, because usually I don't know what else to say in that. I don't know.
Isn't that a real loose term? Even when I find myself writing press releases for the film, it's like, wait, who's starring? Who's featuring? Who's cameo?
Yeah.
I mean, that shit's kind of out the window these days. I just think, like you said, everybody just says starring in, you know? It could be the groundskeeper in the background and like, yo, he stars in the new Guardians of the Galaxy, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, you always, because like for me, I've always sporadically appeared in shows, so I never know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you say featured extra? Do you say, you know what I mean?
How weird does featured extra say? You know what I mean? That just sounds weird. Like I don't know. It's so funny, all the terms, but you get all those headshots, man. I'll tell you, when we were casting the movie, you'll get a kick out of this. It was a really interesting experience, but you look on the back of these resumes, Dave, and some of these people, you don't know who the person is, you've never heard of them, but they've been on the coolest stuff in the world. Like, oh my God, you were on Friends and you were on Seinfeld and blah, 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 blah. And then at the bottom, there's like a little note that just says featured extra, you know, and it's like, wait a minute, you were like an extra just showing up for lunch, which is badass. You know what I mean? But it's crazy that you put this on your resume, you know?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like every acting thing I've ever done, I have been a featured extra in. Like Always Sunny, I was in a pre-interview we were talking about NFL films. I was in an NFL films commercial with some side. So it's just weird, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
it's cool. So you're like me, like you're a jack of all trades, not really successful at any of them, but God damn it, you're out there doing something, you know?
Exactly, you got it.
I love it.
So Chris, just to get started, I wanted to ask, about your background. I mean, obviously, you're a founder of the rock band Army of Freshmen, but I wanted to ask, how did you actually transition into, the idea, of getting into of the film industry?
Yeah, great question, Dave. So basically, super quick background. I am in the band Army of Freshmen, and ever since we've been doing this movie, we've been on a bit of a hiatus, but dude, we've been around for like over 15 years. I was born and raised in New Jersey, close to you, up in Media, Pennsylvania, where you're at. And when I was 17, I left home and I moved by myself to California to do the rock and roll thing. I mean, there was two things I love in my life. I mean, I always loved music and I always loved movies. Quite frankly, nothing else really interests me, period. I like wrestling too and boxing, but that's getting off topic. But with that said, so I did the music thing, man, and Army of Freshmen was one of those bands that didn't blow up. We were always opening up for bigger bands, but we'd be like the first band on the bill. Like we'd come and play the Trocadero in Philly or the TLA, right? But we wouldn't be the band on the marquee. We would be the band that you didn't know that played first, right? It was awesome, man. We got to travel around the world, and I mean, I put my blood, sweat, tears, heart. I spent my whole 20s and practically early 30s doing Army of Freshmen. And right around the time that we were close to finally signing a major label deal in the late 2000s, which in the old music industry was like, that was the goal, right? That was the goal. And dude, downloading came, and it came like a violent, terrible, evil wave, and it literally destroyed bands of my size. We were the middle class bands, if that makes sense, Like we weren't the big boys, but we weren't the garage bands. We were just those hard working bands crisscrossing the United States and Europe in minivans, It was really honorable and noble, and you could make enough to maybe pay the rent and eat, right? But when downloading came, and then the financial collapse in 2008, dude, it just all went to hell quick. It was really, really ugly for the music business. And with that said, we were very close to signing to a major label. And the A&R guy that was ready to do the deal, literally the financial collapse hit. They froze all signings for the year, right? So I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Literally 30 days later, I called to check in to see how things are working and see if we could do the deal in January. Something I had been working for basically my whole life, right, Dave? And the receptionist says he was fired. And there's nobody else to talk to. He was the only A&R guy that wanted us. So yeah, I kind of went through, I don't want to say a depression, but I really had to take a hard look at my life. And I had always bounced around the idea of writing a screenplay because I'm a writer. Like I would pay the bills kind of doing freelance journalism for local newspapers and stuff, right? So I always wanted to write a film just because I'm in Southern California, right, Dave? Like every waiter's got an idea for a movie, right? And I said it'd be fun to do, not even necessarily to make. So I got with my partner in the band, Aaron Goldberg, who co-wrote the screenplay with me, and I got in touch with a producer friend by the name of Reza Riazi, who had produced one of our videos. And this is kind of like the key link here to the story. Reza kind of guided us along. So we were first-time screenwriters, right? But he helped us. He kind of gave us just the, just kind of the focus of what we're trying to do and trying to get across. And he kind of guided the screenplay, and we worked on it off and on for a while. We didn't sit down for like 2 weeks, Sylvester Stallone style, and cram out Rocky. It was a work in progress here and there. We got to the point where we thought it was pretty good, and Reza thought the same thing. And we made the decision that I spent my whole life doing music, going in front of A&R guys, begging to get signed or get this or kissing butt and giving demo tapes, that I said, you know what, if we're going to do this movie, let's just do it, right? Like no matter how much money we get, if we get $10,000 and we've got to turn it into a short film and shoot it in my garage on an iPhone, let's do it. Let's just not have anybody tell us we can't do this. I didn't want to be begging for people to read a screenplay, because think of that, Dave. Who the hell is going to read a raunchy comedy screenplay, first-time screenwriters, and they were in a rock band? I mean, that just sounds awful. Like, I wouldn't want to read that if that was the background and you gave it to me. So I kind of knew going in that we were going to have to do it on our own. And we set out at that point to, let's make this movie. Reza agreed to produce it, and he had produced some indie films before. So the good news is we had somebody helping us, and that's the key thing. I don't want you to think that we were just two guys from a band that just did all this. We had somebody guiding us, but there was no money. He just hopped on because I think at that point he had given us so much advice. He had taken a little sabbatical because he had a film that really got taken from him and turned upside down, and he kind of moved into stand-up. And I think this was an opportunity to hey, maybe I can get back in the game a little bit, and let's find a young, hungry director. And that's basically the genesis. I know that's a lot of backstory, but I think it's important to know because we didn't come from movies at all. The closest we had to that was, I was an extra in one or two movies, a featured extra, right? And then also making our music videos. But that was it, man. We as screenwriters went into this blind. We just had that determination from the indie music world that we were going to do it. You know what I mean? We came from a very DIY music background, and I think we sort of took those ethics and put it into the film. So that's how we got to the point of, yes, we're making a movie. And there's a long backstory, and I'm sorry for that, Dave.
Chris, everyone always likes to talk, and they talk a little more on my podcast. What I'm trying to say, so please, you said you might ramble sometimes. It's encouraged on this podcast.
Okay. Well, you cut me off at any time. It's gonna get, especially if you and I start talking cheesesteaks. It's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely understand. By the way, speaking of cheesesteaks, what is your favorite cheesesteak place?
I know this is sacrilege. Keep in mind, I didn't come from Philly. I came from Jersey, so I had to drive into the city. But pound for pound, I always like Jim's on South Street.
Oh, no. Jim's is great. It's my second favorite place.
What's your favorite?
My favorite place is John's Roast Pork.
Oh, I've heard of that place. Is it that sensational?
Yeah, because it's different than all the other cheesesteak places.
Okay.
Once you have it, you understand what a cheesesteak is supposed to be.
Well, next time I'm out there, you and I are going there. That's good. Just put it on the calendar.
Let's do it, man. It's right by the ECW Arena, too.
Oh,
so we can talk old wrestling.
It's right there on, yikes. That's
Yep, Swanson and Rittner, right by Swanson and Rittner.
Oh, so you talk wrestling too, Dave. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I could talk all day about professional wrestling. Before I got into film, I used to be a huge pro wrestling buff.
Okay.
Quick little mini background. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but mini background. Out of high school, I went right into pro wrestling school. I ended up working with King Kong Bundy in his promotion, and that was a whole adventure I could talk about hours about.
My
So
God. Now, okay, we're veering far off track, but really quickly, we'll circle this all around because obviously there's wrestlers in my movie, so that's like kind of like a connection. But did you ever get to have an indie match? Did you ever get to actually have a pro wrestling match?
I had one actual match, and that was it.
Really? Where was it at?
It was I think it was either Springfield or Exton, Springfield or Drexel Hill, I meant. It was a 20-man battle royal.
Oh, cool.
It was all of the rookies of the school we were at, and that was my one and only professional wrestling match. Because after that, I just wanted to get out of it because I had to go to college, and my love affair wrestling was really burning out, and then basically. That's right around the time I ended up helping King Kong Bundy. So I had that match, and I still had tons of contacts, and they were like, "Oh, I hope you're not going to leave." And I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm not 6'4", I'm 5'9". You know what I mean? I'm a ginger. Who's going to cheer a 5'9" ginger? Come on,
dude. That is too cool. But you got to say you had a professional wrestling match. I mean, like that's a bucket list thing. I think for a lot of people, myself included. That is awesome, dude. That is so cool.
Well, thank you. I'll if you ever want to talk about that at any time.
I knew there was some kinetic energy here. We're both from the Philly, South Jersey area. We both like cheesesteaks. We both like wrestling. We both like movies. I mean, this could get really awkward, dude. By the end of this podcast, people are going to be like disgusted. Like these two guys' love affairs. Ridiculous, man.
Well, most people tune me out anyway, so they're probably
me too. So we're all good. Cool, man. Cool.
So, getting back to the bet,
yes.
So I wanted to ask, Chris, where was the impetus of this idea to actually for the screenplay?
Okay.
Like, did it come from like a friend of yours, or did it come from an idea or a joke?
It was an original idea that I had, and honestly, I think it was kind of inspired by the fact that being on tour in a band, right, Dave? I got the opportunity to meet a lot of girls that I had gone to school with over the years. Like maybe, you come to town and they live there and they see that you're in town and they come to a show or you invite them, or we would go play in my hometown in Cape May a lot where a lot of people you went to school with still lived. And I was always fascinated to see where these girls that I had crushes on, where they ended up. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but just like, man, in the 6th grade, this girl was, the hottest girl in school, or the girl that I just had a crush on, or wherever it may be. And, what would happen if you met your crush 20 years later? Like, where are they? Who are they? And that kind of bounced around in my head. And at one point, I don't have a eureka moment where I remember it. I just always remember when I thought of movie ideas that was at the top of my list. A guy gets in a bet where he's got to go back and meet every girl that he had a crush on in high school. Because it's essentially just a fantasy that I assume I'd like to have. But the reality is it's not going to be all good. Just because that girl was the cutest girl in 6th grade, she could be like, a white trash drug addict. And I thought what would be funny about that premise is if the guy had to hook up with the girl, right? No matter what scenario she's in, he's got to bite the bullet and do so. And it just kind of sounded like it would be a good, fun, raunchy, wacky movie. And that was the genesis. So I think it was kind of influenced by having met some of the girls I went to school with and being, geez, man, that was my crush. Glad that didn't work out, right? But at the same time, I think it lent itself to a good premise. And it, just kind of, once Aaron came in and we started writing it together, that's the fun part about script writing. As much as you set it up, you go down different avenues with the script, and new characters get introduced and things change. And I find that such a fun and fascinating process, how different the project is. Like, because when you think about it at first, because you're a writer, Dave, you see it just like this word for word, and it's got to be like this, and these are the characters, and this is a story. But when you start writing that baby, these characters kind of take a life of their own. And even in a silly, raunchy movie like ours, directions, they start moving in different places and motivations and scenes. And that's a fun process, I think. It's really when you're just cooking with gas and you really like where something's going with a script, that's a cool moment, man, that energy, if you can capture it. And I like writing with a partner because I think you can really feed off people. I think it would be very difficult if I wrote a screenplay by myself because you don't have that quality control of the other person.
Yeah, very true. And, as I found when writing, sometimes I take it way too seriously, and I try to end up forcing things. You know what I mean? It's like, and then you realize, you got into writing because it's fun, right? Or you have something to say, or you want to explore something. You know what I mean? And that's why when you were discussing the idea creation and all these characters, that's what you need. You need to always be excited to come back to it because you got to write. Nobody sits down and just writes out the whole thing in one fell swoop. You come back and you write it in pieces. You write 3 pages, 5 pages, and when you come back, you always have to have that excitement. And you know what I mean? You have to have that excitement of, okay, I see where it's going. What's going to happen now? I'm going to be just as surprised as the audience. You know what I mean? So when you were writing this, Chris, I wanted to ask, did you buy any of those screenwriting books like McKee's Story or Save the Cat by Blake Snyder? Did you buy any of those books?
I didn't. You're talking about the actual screenwriting books?
Yeah,
I didn't. It was very, and again, I think I'm a little spoiled because of the fact that I am a writer, so not that I'm a good writer, but I just had experience writing, even in writing a 500-word article about a band, you still have a beginning and a middle and an end. So I think I understood the process to the point that it just seemed weird to read a book to tell me how to write a book, if that makes sense, but I definitely grabbed, once we were getting ready to make the movie, I ordered a book online that was like the real truth about indie filmmaking, a complete guide from top to bottom, right? That kind of deal, and you'll love this. But, the book now, I keep it by the bathroom. It's like the bathroom read. Dude, the thing was made like 5 years ago. Okay. And as I'm reading it, getting ready to make the movie, just looking for pointers, half the information was defunct. And the book was only 5 years old. Like they were talking about this new Netflix thing, nobody's really figured it out yet. And, they're talking about Lonely Girl 15 was an internet phenomenon, but how can you, and I'm like, my God, this is garbage. Things are moving so fast in the world of technology and film that a book, and a definitive book on the subject in 2012 is now literally archaic. And that's wild to me. So it's almost like, what the hell do you read? Unless you read the most recent stuff on the internet, I don't know if anything could really help,
Yeah, absolutely. I have tons of, I know there's a podcast you can't see, but to my left is tons and tons and tons of how-to filmmaking books. Okay. Virtually I have every indie filmmaking book, screenwriting book, producing book you can get. And some of them are just like that. They're just completely, hey, go grab your friends, grab a mini DV cam, shoot some stuff in your backyard, and, you can send it to festivals. Well, now I don't have to do any of that. I could use my phone. I don't need a DV tape. I could, and edit in iMovie or edit in Windows Movie Maker or Premiere or whatever you want to, and I can just put it right to YouTube.
It's wild, huh? The same thing happened with music in terms of how quick you can go. Like you and I right now can make the decision to start our duo, right? We could write a song, not in person, dude. We could write a song over freaking FaceTime together, right? We could conceivably record the song and release it and have a website up, with a social media account before the sun goes down. And I'm allowed to curse, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fucked up, dude. That process isn't supposed to be like that. Like, where's the growth? Where's the learning? And I think the same thing has happened to film, where it's certainly a much more complicated process than writing a song, of course, no doubt, right? But everything that you just said, you can still kind of do. And that's awesome, but it's also that double-edged sword of it's really flooding the market and putting a lot of crap out there too. They just release everything instead of where's the days of kind of just making movies in your backyard and nobody sees them but your parents, and then you slowly grow and get better at it. Now kids are making their very first thing and throwing it up on YouTube, hoping they get like a viral thing. I don't know. It just seems it's a hard time for the cream to, the cream to rise to the top or whatever the saying is. It's just really muddied, man. Technology has made things so awesome. We could never make the movie that we made without it. But at the same time, I am also aware that there's a lot of films, maybe some people would think are film, that are being made and it's almost, blocking the path for other movies. It's a weird time, man. I feel like we're just living in a very strange age,
Oh yeah, absolutely, we are. And it's funny because there's a short film called Panic Attack, and it actually, I forget the guy who made it, but Hollywood found it, and they actually gave him the job of directing the remake of Evil Dead.
Okay.
just because of that.
Wow.
So it's almost like now, this whole avenue of YouTube and podcasting and self-publishing, it's like they're bypassing not just one gatekeeper, but like 25, because now you're almost like your own agent and manager, because now you can say, oh, no, I don't want to sell these book rights, or I don't want to sell your rights. I want to sell this. I mean, but you're right. There are a lot more players out there now, but I think that as long as you have something that can stand above anybody else. I had Paul Petito on here, and he and I were talking about that exact same thing, because he was always saying, he tells his film students, you have to make something, and they're saying, well, there's like 10 kachillion things on YouTube right now, and he says, how do you stand out? How do you get on the front page of iTunes? How do you get on the front page of Netflix? You know what I mean? And it's just it really depends upon what's hot, your concept, how polished it is. You have a lot of different factors now, or maybe it's the same factors always have been there, but they're always have to sort of work out like in your favor. Like we were talking earlier about in the pre-interview, maybe, someday some guy wakes up, has a great morning, and all of a sudden your TV pilot gets made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, oh man, it's a depressing thought, but it's just, I certainly don't want to go down the negative road, for lack of a better word, but I think it's a terrifying prospect. I mean, I used to, and I keep falling back to music, but that's just who I am. And I think what's happening to the film world happened to the music world about 10 years ago, right? But
yes.
I used to tell kids, dude, just get in the van, man. Just do it, dude. Just go for it. Just do it. Good, bad, learn, go do it, dedicate some time. And now I don't say that. And it really freaks me out that if a kid comes to me and says, we just started a band, what do we do? I don't tell them to hop in a van. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to play? Who's going to give a shit, And I wonder in some ways if it's that similar to the film world, Like if a kid right out of the gate wants to do it, it's probably not, I don't want to say going for the big time, the brass ring, but it's probably much more honing your craft on web series and smaller things instead of jumping right into it, guns blazing, it's strange, man, and I come from such a different perspective because I didn't have that educated film background that somebody like yourself does. So I think some of the reason we got this made was sheer tenacity and dumb luck and a lack of education, because I think if we knew what we were getting into and how much time it would be and how expensive it would be, we probably wouldn't have done it, and that's kind of that. Sometimes being naive can lead to good things if you're willing to put the work in, A lot of people, I think, took mercy on us, Dave. They were just like, you're doing what? Like, you can't do that. Oh, God. Okay, well, let me help you. Good luck. Good luck falling on your face on this one. Good luck making a feature film. Come on, And somehow we pulled it off, but we surrounded ourselves with good people to help pull it off. But, man, people heard our budget and people hear where we wanted to shoot it in Ventura, not Los Angeles. They were looking at us like we were lunatics, dude. What the cool thing is we proved a lot of people wrong. We got it done, but it was a painful, long process. It was not smooth sailing,
Yeah, definitely. I understand completely where you're coming from. And, just to sort of, as we're talking about writing the bet, because I do want to talk about actually making the movie. Yeah, no problem. But as we're talking about, writing the bet, did you use Final Draft or Fade In to write the movie? Did you use any software?
Dude, check this out. We were so naive. Aaron did the typing. I did the talking. We didn't really know about Final Draft. We had heard of it. We were kind of aware what it was. And I'm sure your listeners will be like, are you kidding me? We were literally indenting every time a new character talked. Like the first draft or two drafts that we did, we turned it into, Reza, who was kind of helping us and giving us some guidance, who ended up producing the film. And he was like, there's something wrong with your final draft? And we're like, what do you mean? He was like, don't tell me you typed this. And we're like, yeah. He was like, oh my God. You know what I mean? He was like, dude, that's remarkable. He was like, how long did this take? And we're like, well, it would take hours. We'd write it and then spend another couple hours like indenting, centering, bracketing. It was trial by fire, man, if you can believe that. We did get Final Draft and it was like a whole new world, it just changed everything. But literally that's how backwards we were. It was like Mick Foley writing his biography on pen and paper. It's like there's something kind of cool about that, but I can't believe we did it. I'd love to get those hours of my life back.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know like James Patterson and Quentin Tarantino, they still use like pad and pen.
Wow.
I still do it too sometimes, but now you know what the biggest con of that is, Chris, is the fact that now you're ending up with like notepads and like seriously, I have like stacks of notebooks that I've been writing in, and I'm always sitting there going, someday I'm gonna have to scan these things.
Yeah.
And just do away with it because Evernote has changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where if I have an idea, I pull out my phone and go, okay, hold on, let me just write this down real quick. Okay. So you know what I mean? I just type it like that. And then I'll come back later on and pull it all up and then go, okay, now I'll get into final draft or fade in whatever I'm using.
Mm-hmm. But do you wonder sometimes, not to get on the bigger sort of like deeper meaning, but do programs like that, have they cheapened things a little bit? Like all the greats back in the day, they didn't have final draft, right? When a guy like Mankiewicz was banging out Citizen Kane, he didn't have somebody indenting things for him. These guys are on typewriters, man, and then they bang scripts out. You just kind of wonder, as much as it's made things easier, like has it affected work ethic in a lot of ways,
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to say that I hope it has just made it so they can concentrate, like guys like us can just concentrate on the craft more without having to worry about stuff like, like getting bogged down with that. And technology in and of itself is supposed to make things easier. Like in the pre-interview, we're talking about when technology works, it's phenomenal. But that is a good question. Personally, I could never go back now to using anything else besides Find. Yeah, so it's if I ever had to go back, I would probably, I don't know, take a header off the roof.
Gotcha. Understood. But you wouldn't be alone. Just be a bunch of screenwriters. You'd probably live because you'd land on their corpses or something.
Yeah, that's right. I would live because like somebody like James Patterson, what he does is he writes all longhand. He gives it off to a secretary. She types it all up and then gives it back to him. And he has a process, and it's triple spaced. And that way he can
nice if you have a secretary.
Oh yeah,
some of us aren't lucky enough to afford these type of things. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying was, he does have a secretary. That's why I think he can get away with it. And Tarantino, I don't know what he does. Maybe he has a secretary at some point. But
I imagine he's got a few at this point.
So, all right. So, you have written the bet.
Yes.
So I just want to take us through this process of, you had the idea, you wrote the bet. You've actually got final draft, so you're able to actually correctly format it. So where was the point where you started pitching to people? Did you pitch to investors? Did you try to crowdfund this?
Yeah. So it's an important part of the story, and I think that's what everybody's interested in that, right? Where the hell do you find the money? So when we decided to do it, okay, what we did, I'm giving you the step by step. We came up with 3 budgets. We didn't do one of these things where it has to be this amount of money, right? We came up with our bare bones, super backyard indie budget. Right. We came up with, our ideal budget, and we came up with something in the middle. And when I say ideal, we weren't asking for sick money. You know what I mean? We were saying like ideal for a micro budget movie. OK, so we had these 3 different budgets, and basically we said, let's initially go to some friends and family, and again, we're not talking about all our, broke music buddies. We went to mom and dad, aunts and uncles. Aaron and I, literally pitched them personally. Couple people came in with just a little bit of money. We found a couple $1,000s, to be completely blunt. And what we did, Dave, is we used that as seed money to try and find bigger money. And what I mean is, if you're trying to, let's say, take meetings, or you need to fly somewhere, or whatever it is, you need a little bit of money to do that. A guy like me that works a part-time job and is normally always dead broke, I don't have a budget to go, if I get a meeting in New York, hop on a plane and fly out there. And then let's face it, if you're meeting somebody, you probably want to pay for the dinner, right? If you're actually trying to get them to invest in your freaking film. So what we used that couple $1,000s for was seed money. And I mean that what we did is we printed pitch packs. We, put a little budget for travel. We put a little budget for food, and we sort of used that for our money to try and find more money. Does that make sense? So we didn't take the first $5,000 and like, hey, here's our first $5,000 for the movie. We took it as almost our money and to give ourselves a couple bucks, not to lie to you, so we could take a little time off work and actively take 2 months, right? And look for money. So that's what we did. And I think maybe that's a little different than most people, because I think some people put the money away in the budget for the film, but then how do they fly out to get that meeting? How do they do this or that? And I think talking to somebody in person is infinitely always better when you're talking about finances. You can look them in the eye. They can see your passion. It's real. It's tangible. You're dealing with a human being, and this is what happened. This is how we got our executive producers. First off, luck is a huge part of it, but obviously being an Army of Freshmen, right? We had, a lot of connections in the music world. I was friends with, and very kind of casual friends. Obviously now I've grown to be very close friends, but casual friends with two, if you can believe this, theater producers in the United Kingdom. When I say theater, I mean theater, like musicals, like shows, right? And I know that they had been friends with some other bands that I was friends with, and I knew that they were visiting the United States. And they kind of told me once, hey, if you ever have some projects going on, just keep us posted, that kind of thing. But basically, I knew these were people that were open to the arts, if that makes sense, because they came from a theatrical background. So I reached out to them because I knew they were going to be in the United States. I said, hey, I have this project I'd love to tell you about. They said, hey, come on out. And this is completely true. And this is where I talk about the seed money. They were going to be in Disneyland. And I live in California. So they were going to be in the Disney in Florida, right? So we took the last money in the pot, right? Bought a plane ticket, bought a cheap Motel 6, got the cheapest rental possible, okay? And I flew out by myself because we couldn't afford to bring Reza or Aaron with me. That's the co-writer and the producer. And I met them at Disneyland, and I sat down over lunch at Disney, right? And I told them what we were doing, and I told them what we were trying to do, and I told them we were looking for, executive producers and investor for the project. And I gave them, two budgets. I gave them the not the ghetto backyard budget, but I gave them our moderate and I gave them our ideal. And again, when I say ideal, it wasn't like, hey, millions more. I'm talking like, hey, another $20,000 or something, right? And they said, okay, well, think about it. Thanks for talking to us, blah, blah, blah. And then about 2 weeks later, I got an email saying that they were down to be the lead investor, as long as we could find a couple other smaller investors to, do it. And that was that. We were off and running. And literally that is the story of how we got our executive producers for the project. And I have to say this because you got to plug the people that help you, right? Their names are Craig Beach and Teresa Beach, theatrical producers over in the United Kingdom. And Dave, they were so awesome. Literally, I tell other people about our executive producers and they're like, they start crying because they can't believe it, because usually the executive producers are hell. When's it getting released? When are we getting our money? What's going on? How come it's taking so long? Dave, we were doing a lot of first time stuff and we were new to it. A regular investor probably would have taken legal action against us because things were taking so long. But we had such a limited budget. We had to go really slow to make things right. And we were a small team. So we were very lucky that way. But what I would have to say about that, if somebody's looking for advice and, man, how do I get my project filmed? Find a couple dollars and almost use that as I say seed money, but use it as the money that you're going to use to try and find the investors, if that makes sense at all. Almost like find a little bit of money just to be able to give yourself a month or 2 months to send emails all day and make phone calls all day and connect dots. Like, these are dots. I wasn't in film where I just called up a film producer and they said, I want to back your movie, right? I was in music, and I knew somebody in music that had been involved in some musicals in the UK. So I knew they were involved in theatrical projects, right? I had a bit of a relationship with them. So it was outside the box. And I think in this day and age, that's the only way to find money for film. Unless you're one of the big daddies, and I may be wrong, but unless you're a big daddy or unless your parents are filthy rich, which mine certainly are not, you have to think outside the box. You have to look in different places. So this small, tiny, micro-budget, raunchy indie comedy essentially was made and executive produced by two theatrical producers in another country. So I know that's a bit of a long story, but I just want to stress that if someone's looking for money, you've got to look in places where maybe people haven't looked before. theater people helped make a movie, as opposed to movie people that are bitter, right? And they've gone down that road and they know how difficult it is for indie film. Theater people actually found it more fascinating than actual film producers who we met with that just rolled their eyes and said, good luck.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy, Chris. And I always am fascinated with how, people have gotten their movie made. And, that is an excellent point because, you're right. You want to, checking out theater people and you know what I mean? Like they're not, this is new to them too. You know what I mean? This is still cool to them. And if you do get some film people, there's a lot of bitter, burned out people in the film industry and they just sort of go, oh, another film, blah, blah, blah. And that's why I try to be the difference to that. I always try to stay upbeat and positive. Yeah. And, and it's the same thing too. For everyone listening, if you're going to make a production staff or whatever crew you have, make sure that they all believe in the project and that no one is negative or bitter, because that attitude spreads like a virus.
It's death. It's death. It's absolute death on set. It's death in pre-production. Just because somebody's cool and just because somebody has great gear or just because somebody has good hookups or a good resume, I'm telling you, man, don't fucking work with them. If you are indie, find people that are hungry and young and they want to kill for it like you. It's just not worth it. I'd rather shoot on a lesser camera and have a DP that's thrilled to be there. I'd rather have somebody that maybe is not on a TV show and I found them in a theater program, but they're believing in that character. They're becoming that character because, dude, that jadedness is terrifying. And the great thing that we did, one of the key things to get this thing done, because I'm telling you, we didn't have enough money to do it, Dave. We didn't have enough time to do it. We didn't have enough people to do it, but we got people that were stoked. We got our director. Our producer knew a guy that was doing a web series, right? Didn't go to film school. Director by the name of Ryan Ederer, right? Had never done a feature, had never done a TV show. We literally had just done web series, right? And our producer, when he was looking for the director for this, went to see him work on a web series. They had mutual friends. And he said the director was holding the boom mic and shouting instructions, right? And also running to get coffee for everybody. And he said that's when he knew this could be our guy, right? Because he was so passionate, right? Over a little web series that most likely no one's going to see. How passionate would he be if he got to do a very, very small feature? So we met with him at a Denny's, right? He actually reminds me of you, to be quite frank, just because he's positive like that. And he just said, guys, if you let me direct this movie, all I want to do is direct a feature. He said, I will quit my job. I'm a waiter in LA. I will quit my job for pre-production and for the filming and for at least a solid month after. Done. I'll live on nothing, we gave him peanuts, Dave. Everybody worked for so cheap on this, but I think we found the good people. But I also think they believed in my passion and Aaron's passion and Rez's passion. When I hunted down some of the cast, which are some really super crazy cool stories, but dude, I was coming to them with nothing, but I was coming to them with passion. You know what I mean? Like, please, just like, let's get behind this, if that makes sense. And it appeals to a certain type of person. Not everybody, dude. Some people blew me right off, right? But you'd be surprised some of the cool little people you can pull because they're just good people at the end of the day. It's getting to them. It's all connections, and it's all, how do you get to that person,
Yeah, very, very true. And when you said he reminded you of me. I was going to say, what is he, a 5'9" ginger? Like, but he's
a 5'9" from 5'9" kid from Chicago. Yeah.
Aha. Okay. Yeah. I always like to. I always wanted to ask, but no. But all kidding aside, though, I agree completely, man. Just going back to that, having that passionate people, man, on set and avoiding all that negativity, because it not only is a virus, it drains everyone's energy, and it also causes a lot more conflict with each other, and because I've been on those sets, Chris, where all of a sudden someone comes in, they're like, oh, this is okay. Yeah. I guess I want to be here, and then you have people who are just flat out like, oh, I don't want to be here anyway. This thing's gonna suck. Let me tell you about I had a real quick story. I was on a film set one time, and this is years ago, and I was just goofing around making a student film, and I had this guy come on, and all he did he's my director of cinematography, and he came recommended by this other guy I know, and all he did was tell everybody about his latest project. You could not stop him from talking about it. Between takes, all he did, he was like, you know what this reminds me of? My movie, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I got it, dude. You're making a zombie film. Congratulations. There's 25 quadrillion of them, but you can add yours to it.
Come on other projects, and instead of working on that project, all they do is talk about their project. We had somebody like that show up, and I won't get into any details beyond that, but it was just like, dude, it was kind of like he was kind of driving the director nuts because he kept talking about the project that he was working on. It's like, hey, man, that's awesome, dude. Stoked to help you, but we're fucking, we got a day left of filming here. We are making the tiniest movie of all time. Like, we don't have time for this. Like, we'll just stay on board here, man. Call next week and we'll talk about the zombie movie, Like,
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if they had played their cards right, they could have had an ally instead of just, boring everyone to death, just going, hey, man, by the way, I have my own movie. Like, we got it.
Yeah.
We got it you know what I mean? So
I think when you're on set, do the job that you do, try and make connections, but work hard on the job you do, because that's what'll really come through, especially in the indie setting. And I'm telling you, Dave, there's so many good things aligned up with this cast and the people involved, but we didn't get a lot of strangers. Reza was like, hey, I want to work with this DP. I know, I got one or two stand-ups that would be great for these roles. Let's try them first. I got an actor buddy that was in this other indie I did. Try him. And lo and behold, I look at the cast. There's a handful of people that we got from open casting, and we had huge open casting. We brought tons of people in, but I'd say 75% of that cast is a direct connection in one way or another. It's probably only a handful of people that we walked in and didn't know, and they just kick so much butt we put them in. And I think a lot of people like to work with who they know, but there's a reality to that. So it's good to make a lot of friendships and connections, because you got a better chance of getting thrown into a film as an actor if you're a waiter with the director who just got this small indie than just going to an open casting call. I almost wonder if it's even possible to do that anymore, to even get in a movie just as a dude who walked in a room. Hi, you don't know me. I'm here to show you how awesome I am. Because in the back of their head, they're sitting there and they got their buddy or their nephew or their uncle or their neighbor, or, it's very incestuous. And our movie was no exception to that. But you trust those people. They didn't screw us. We had one lady take us to SAG because we canceled her because we had to cut the role because we couldn't film the scene. Dave, it was a $150 role. And she contacted SAG and said, I need to be paid because they canceled on the day of. She hadn't even left her house yet, dude. You know what I mean? So will we ever work with her again? Hell no. If we ever hear about her again, we'll be like, dude, that fill in the blank literally cost us $150 when we had nothing in the bank because a role got cut. She wasn't in the car. She wasn't on set. Literally, she was just waking up. And I said, I'm so sorry. But that just gives you an example of that type of attitude can be deadly, So I'm glad she wasn't in it, because if somebody would do that to a small, tiny little movie to get your $150, like, how would you have been on set? I just don't think you can be positive enough. Even if you're not a positive person, learn to be, because I don't think this is the business for you if you're not ready to really just be nothing but good energy.
Yeah, I concur. And the funny thing is, when last time I casted for a film I was shooting in, we did it the right way. We had it at a studio. We had we had 2 rooms. We had everything. So and we had a great audition room that was on an elevated stage. And I had a rule: I am going to cast everybody that I don't know. People got, that I knew got to go up there, and I gave everyone a shot who I think even had a remote shot. And we whole day, and I actually ended up casting everybody who I didn't know. Completely, I had no friends, no family, nothing. Everybody was somebody I didn't know. I was meeting for the first time. All those people proved out to be right. They were all great people. Yeah. Except for actually, let me amend what I just said. There's one person I hired based upon a producer who wanted him, and I said, okay. I said I will take a chance on this person. That person ended up being the problem.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was because I knew, and I said, this is why I wanted all fresh faces. But by the way, and it's funny you mentioned about SAG, because this person kept, I announced casting, and then I didn't even bother. Like, you know what I mean? Like, my producers were on Facebook all the time, and and you know, at that point, I have an on and off relationship with Facebook. But anyways,
who doesn't, dude? Who doesn't? Right?
Oh my God, the drama on Facebook! Like, who needs this shit? Honestly,
I'm curious with the whole promoted post shit. Like, isn't the whole premise of Facebook is if somebody likes you and they click like, that they get to know about what you're doing, and now you have to pay them to let them know what you're doing? It's like ridiculous, dude. It's like you have like 10,000 followers and your post reached 5 people. Like, well, what about the 9,599 people that want to know what I'm doing? And now I have to pay you to do it. I almost feel like they invented that. They made it awesome. And then once they had the whole world on it, they decided to start getting fucking paid. And screw you. The whole purpose of this is out the window. So, I mean, Facebook to me is, I want it to go the way of MySpace. Let it burn, you know?
It's like the mafia, man. Anything you want done on Facebook, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. Facebook, the mafia of social media.
But I was just to finish that thought. This guy said, you know, hey, I would like to try out and I like to, you know, for a role. And already I've been warned about this guy. Real creepy dude, real sleazebag. Well, one of my producers says, listen, you know, we'll be casting soon enough, but we're crowdfunding right now. He took us to SAG and said that we were trying to make him pay to audition.
Oh my God.
And SAG thankfully sided with us, and they said, no, they did not say that, blah, blah, blah. I told my producer, I said, don't even talk to him. I said, I told you about this guy. And then, I mean, that caused a problem between us. And I mean, all because of this really wormy guy.
You know what's bizarre? It's like those people just like, I always fear there's a lot of people in this world that I would like to fucking tell to fuck off, right? But I don't, because I just feel that you burn bridges. You never know what's going to occur, especially in a business like this. Why would you ever, even somebody's a dick, okay, they're a jerk. You're my homeboy Dave. I call you on the sly and say, Dave, do not work with Chuck Schmuckatello. He's terrible, right? But why tell Chuck that he's a terrible person? I even in life, I don't do that when I meet somebody I don't like. It's like, what's the point, dude? Like, why throw that negative energy out there? I mean, it's just, but I just think people that do that in this business, what are they, fools? They don't think people talk? I mean, it's just insanity, you know?
Yeah, oh, dude, this one time on Facebook, the Philly film scene, as we were talking in the pre-interview, this guy gets on his Facebook, tags a local producer, and says, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. Fuck him, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking this has to be a joke. I said, because there's no way this guy is serious. They start going back and forth all over Facebook, and the guy chimes back with, well, it's not a good idea to make enemies with a producer.
Yeah.
And they're going back, and this guy, because the other guy was an actor, they're going back and forth. Other people are getting brought in, and I go, all these people have just entered my blacklist because, I mean, Matt, I would never want anything like this to happen.
Yeah, isn't it crazy, dude? Like, why? There's a lot of weird stuff out there. So obviously, you and I are jumping all over the place. But the whole point of that, to go back to the bet, the movie that we made is, man, we eliminated that, Dave. I mean, it was awesome. If you were to go on this set, you literally would be treated with so much kindness and respect. And check this out. When we were doing auditions, I would ask people that I was interested in at the end when they got up. Even the girl who plays our lead actress, who's gone on to do some really cool stuff, I said, because I loved her, I thought she was great. And I was just like, I have one last question. Like, are you a nice person? And she was stunned, and she was just like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know, just like, we're new to this, and, you know, we're scared of like the whole actress Hollywood reputation. Like, we just want nice, normal people. Like, are you friendly, like, in real life? And she started laughing, and she's like, yeah, I'm friendly in real life. But she was so stunned to hear that question, but it came from a very honest place. You know, like, are you being real right now, or are you being nice because you want to get cast in this? Like, if we're having lunch, can we talk to each other? Are you going to be, I don't want to be here. I just did it to get everything on my reel. I got something better. Now I need to go be a hot chick on the set of, 30 Rock. I mean, bad example, but you know what I mean? Like, I was so obsessed with making sure that people were nice. I wanted them talented too. There's a couple people we passed on, I think, that could have maybe even helped the movie because they had a bit of a name. Because I met them and I was like, I got a bad feeling, man. I got a bad feeling. Like, they're not going to take this seriously. They want to be in bigger shit. I'd like those people that are kind of bubbling, that are really hungry and want to do good work. Because there was a lot of, like, with the dads, we cast 2 professional wrestlers. We cast Diamond Dallas Page and Jake the Snake Roberts, which is a wild story. But we had a couple leads on some dads that were more like character actors, and I won't say any names, but dudes that you and I know. But there were these B-movie dudes, Dave, these dudes that like, yo, you give them $5,000 a day, right? And they'll come and they'll barely know the lines, but you can say you've got the dude from this TV show in it or the guy that was in this movie, and they just make a living popping around these B movies. I even hear one guy wore an earpiece. And I'm like, what? That guy's not even that big. But they're like, he wears an earpiece and you feed him his lines. But hey, you can give him $5,000 and then you can say so-and-so's the dad in your little tiny movie. And I just thought that was so horrifying and kind of sad too, but it's a reality,
Yeah, I was just thinking right now, a guy on set with an earpiece and some PA feeding him lines.
Yeah, totally. Like, and what does he say? Like, okay, Mr. So-and-so, say this one's sad, I miss you, son, and then he's just like, I miss you. I mean, imagine editing around that. I mean, imagine making sure the dude's hair covers the earpiece. And that's a reality that a filmmaker would do because, hey, at least he's got some type of name. So on the stupid cover, we can put featuring the dude from I'm trying to think of a TV show, you know what I mean? But featuring the dude from you see them, Dave, I don't have to do names.
Oh,
you see those guys that they're like, why are they in so many B movies where they just take the $5,000 a day and that's that? And then people cram their scenes in one day because they can't afford them for 2 days. It's crazy, man.
My favorite dad who's actually starting B movies is Michael Gross from Family Ties.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Tremors, and I actually know somebody who's worked with him, and he says, no, Michael's not like that at all. Michael actually shows up. He still works hard. He's the nicest guy.
How come that guy hasn't done more? I actually thought he was a really good actor. Like, is he still around?
Oh, yeah, he's still around. He just released Tremors 5 with him and Jamie Kennedy.
Wow. Dude, great name. Great. That's a hell of a pull right there, dude. That's somebody that's just seems like a good actor. I bet he's a good dude, That's that's an interesting one. You forget about people like that. There's so many of them floating around out there. It's got to be brutal, dude. I mean, to be an actor has just got to be tough.
Yeah, definitely. And I have friends who are actors, and we're always going back and forth about, auditioning, casting, and stuff like this. And, because how it is, Chris, because some people know, hey, Dave, what's this director like who I'm going to work with? And I say, he's pretty no nonsense and, blah, blah, blah. And this one's, real, fast and loose. It just likes to have fun. So, you know what I mean? It's just stuff like that, and it's, and I would never recommend anybody, like we were just talking about, I would never recommend anybody who I wasn't 100% confident in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, that really is critical, and I would, by the way, I would love to work with Michael Gross someday. Yeah. I think I have not only heard good things about him, but I heard, I love everything he's in. All the Tremors movies, he makes those Tremors movies.
And plus, if he ever writes an autobiography, he already has the greatest title ever, just A Gross Life. And it's just him on the front looking sad,
Just covered in blood of a tremor, of a graboid.
Yeah, totally.
So, Chris, as we're talking about the bet, I wanted to ask, and I always ask this to indie filmmakers, what was the biggest challenge, whether it was a day, whether it was a specific incident, what was the biggest obstacle you had to overcome while you were making this thing?
During filming or during the whole process?
During filming.
Okay, during filming, okay, because we filmed over 13 days. We shot it in 13 days, all in the city of Ventura. The most difficult thing was during filming. The most difficult thing was the wearing of the different hats because we were so small that Aaron and I were the set dressers, right? Aaron and I were the wardrobe dudes. Aaron and I were the prop guys. Aaron and I were the go get the catering guys. And Aaron and I were also the we were so much. We were so much. And it was too many hats. The lesson that I learned, hopefully when we make our next one, actually I should talk positive, when we make our next one next year, right? The key thing I think would be is you just can't have enough of those assistants, not people to beat up or bully or make you go get coffee. You know what I mean? But just somebody there with you, like, hey, like this is kind of my guy. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm just going to make this up. But Steve, you're with me. Ryan, you're with Aaron. yo, we'll treat you great, nothing but love, but we just need a set of hands that you're always with me. Almost like, give me 2 extra arms, we're going to be doing some fun stuff, but we just bit off more than we could chew. So it was hard to focus on that. And then I was also picking up wrestlers at airports. And we also had other people helping with this, Dave. I don't want you to think it was just 4 people making this movie, right? But we just thought we could do more. I wanted to be on set more, dude. I wanted to be sitting there watching it. And, as the writer and co-producer, I wanted to be watching the actual movie get made. And I spent 50% of that movie not on set, but setting up the set or picking people up or picking up food because we were so small, So I guess the most difficult thing was wearing too many hats. You got to find a way to find more people to help with the hats, but you have to trust them. And I really don't trust many people. I had a vision of how every room should look. I had a vision of I knew the relationships with the restaurants that were doing the catering. So how can I send somebody when I need to be the one that goes in there and it's Chris's face that they know, and that's why they're giving them a bunch of tacos. So it was just that. I think you can wear too many hats, and sometimes that can probably be the death of small movies. But again, we had a lot of good people around us. So that to me was the most difficult thing. I should have trimmed a couple things off the list that I was responsible for, but we wanted to take that money, Dave, and put it in other places. And I think that's why our movie, hopefully when you see it, hopefully you'll like it and find it funny. But I think you'll see, man, for the budget, damn, these guys did a good job of making this stuff look legit, And I think that's because we saved money in certain places where other places would get trailers, right? Or where other places would hire a catering company, or where other places would pay for food, or where other places would hire a set dresser. We did all of that, and that really, I think, made things difficult, but made us to make a movie that's better.
Yeah, that is something I always talk about with filmmakers is there's a tendency to read something like Robert Rodriguez's film without a filmmaker without a crew, or even like the Rebel's Guide by Stu Makovitz, and it's almost like, and I've done this to myself, it's almost as if we're trying to be a one-man crew and it ends up hurting you more than helping you. And I completely understand, Chris, when you're talking about putting that money elsewhere. That's what I've always thought of too, is, why should I have, I can be the camera operator and the cinematographer and the boom mic operator, and I'll edit this thing, and you know what I mean? And I'll be the colorist, and I'll do Foley.
Just because you can, should you? That's the question.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's why when I make movies from now on, I always just want to be the writer, the director, and the producer. And that's a lot.
That's a lot, dude. That's a lot. I think the writer is the easiest one of the bunch because your work's kind of done. Like, what are you going to do on set? Maybe catch a line that you want done a little different. It's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think you can handle being like, but it sounds like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but you're right. I mean, you just wear so many hats because you can. But then again, at the end, the hardest part of the whole movie, forget the filming. Filming was awesome. Is post-production. We were not prepared. We were not ready. We ran out of money. Tech issue after tech issue after tech issue after tech issue, to the point of the film is out upon release of this podcast, right? Came out today, I believe. So the film can be seen, blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking to you a couple days before we release it, right? Let's be honest. So our premiere is in Los Angeles in 48 hours. And we just got the Blu-ray completed to show it because the poor producer and director spent the past 10 days doing program after program after recording after program to burn a freaking Blu-ray. I mean, like, that's what we're talking about. And it's tech. Tech has been a complete nightmare for something like this because we haven't had the money to have a real proper post-production team. And it really made things take a long time and was brutal, man. So I would say tech is the hardest part of it, which is funny because it's the first thing you and I said when we got on the phone in the pre-interview,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad, though, that everything has worked out. Honestly, man, Chris, because I hear so many independent films, they have a budget, whatever that budget might be, and they get to like 75% done, 80% done, and then all of a sudden they have to stop for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Yeah. And there are so many movies in the Philadelphia, especially in the Philadelphia area where I am, where I've been a part of films like that, where I've been an actor for them, or I've helped out in crew or something, and all of a sudden, they're like, oh yeah, that movie's on some guy's hard drive, and we're probably never going to finish it.
Yeah, totally. And how sad is that? Is there anything more sad in the world than that, man? I mean, like, that heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears, and it's just gone. Like, oh, man, I mean, I'd be devastated, dude. We were devastated how long post-production was taking. And at one point, I was never going to give in to the vision, but there was a vision of, is this going to be one of these things? You know what I'm saying? Like, is this going to be one of these things that can't get done because we ran out of money? That was a real tough time, I mean, post-production took a long time, and man, it's depressing. It's kind of scary. Like, oh my God, like, are the investors going to, I mean, I'm being honest with you because it's a filmmaking podcast, right? But like, what are the investors going to do if we can't pull this off? What happens to the footage? What happens to our reputations? I mean, like, so we just stayed in the pocket, but I mean, the amount of work, my God, Dave, if you could have told me ahead of time, I would have done it, of course, but geez, would I have questioned my sanity, because I mean, I've basically remained in poverty just to get this thing done because I can only work part-time because I need to spend the rest of the time working on the movie, man. I mean, God, is it a labor of love? I just have such a deep respect for people that make movies now. I will never shit on a movie. I may not like it, but an indie film, I'll shit on the studio ones all day, but I will never shit on an indie film again. And when I say indie, let's talk about real indies, dude. I'm not talking about $1 million indie with Daniel Radcliffe being a guy who farts as a corpse. I'm talking about like, hey, you made a movie for $100,000. You made a movie for $150,000. You made a movie for $75,000. Basically, you pull off a movie for under $150,000 and you have my respect forever,
Yeah, and I agree completely. And by the way, Swiss Army Man, somebody told me the premise of that movie, and I thought they were joking around.
Right.
And then I saw a trailer, and I was like, oh, okay. But I said, you know what, Chris, I've seen so many weird movies over the years. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I'll take a gamble on this one too.
Yeah, cool. Good for you, man. Good for you. Maybe, I mean, honestly, it'd probably be like a freaking masterpiece, right? It'd probably be like the most important film made in years, so good for them. You got to respect somebody doing something different, you have to. Yeah. But people are telling me like it's this new indie. Get the fuck out. Ain't nothing indie about a movie with those two guys in it. Like, come on, the CGI alone when he rides them through the ocean probably costs like $100,000. You and I could have made 5 shorts for that,
Yeah, seriously. I mean, and I believe me, I understand completely what you're saying, Chris. And because I mean, I've made movies for literally nothing, just everyone doing it for the love of the game. Yep. And I've made things for like $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, and you're like, holy crap! It sounded like a lot of money when I started, and now it's like down to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's a mind-blowing business, man. I got a lot of respect for you guys that do this and love it and breathe it because it's so hard to get it done. I mean, what other thing can you name that you just can't do, right? If I want to be a pro baseball player, probably not going to happen, but damn it, I can play baseball every day of my life, right? I can get in an intramural league, I can play. And fill in the blank with anything else. Music, okay, maybe I'm not going to be, I'll give you Bon Jovi reference and you're in that part of the world. I'm not going to be Bon Jovi, but I can still write a song. I can still find a little coffee house open mic and I can play it for people, right? But you just can't make a film. Okay, you can grab your iPhone, of course. I'm not saying you can do that, but do you know what I mean? An actual full-length feature film, you just can't do it. There's a million hurdles. There's all these people. I just think it's just such an undertaking to go down that road that I just support anybody, man. Like, just awesome. Hell, it's great. How can I help you? What do you need? Because you're about to go to war. Like, you are about to go to war. And it doesn't end in the filming. Here I am two years later, finally releasing the thing and the distribution you're dealing with and doing the premiere and doing the press and you're all doing, I'm just, again, you are talking to me at a time where my head's spinning. So you're probably getting a very emotional version of me. If we talk in 3 months, we could probably have a very relaxed. So Chris, how did it happen? Well, Dave, this happened, but I'm in the midst of like, but it's an exciting and I asked for this and I'm pumped up and we're proud of it too, man. It's a big life goal and a huge accomplishment,
Yeah, oh, absolutely, Chris. And I've been there before too, and I completely understand where you're coming from, dude. And honestly, Chris, you should be proud of the Bet movie. And now you're probably at that phase where you at the end you're probably you're drained. You've given everything you can, and you're like, you know what? I've made one movie. That's it. Goodbye. And then about a month or two later, you're like, man, I should maybe make another one.
It's funny you say that, Dave. While we were waiting for post production to happen. happened and we kind of had the post-production blues, right? And trying to find some more money, right? What we did is we wrote another script. Aaron and I learned so much. We said, let's take this education. Let's write another one, man. And it's so funny, you get better, but we had so much on set experience in this whole process. I kind of feel like we went to film school without going to film school. Right. And I'm sure film school people will be like, fucking idiot. No, you didn't. No, it's true. I don't know the difference between this brand of camera or this brand of camera. Right. But we wrote this next script and we're very excited about it. We actually want to shoot it next year in South Jersey, in your neck of the woods. And it was so cool because we got to write a script knowing what it's like to make a movie. Now we know what we need. Now we know, dude, can't write that scene. That's ridiculous. It'll get cut. So it got to be very focused, and that's just the education that comes with time that guys like you have. But it was very exciting to put that into play. And if this movie does well, your hope is that it opens the door for another executive producer or the same executive producers or just more connections in the business to back this and get behind another one. But I definitely learned we need more money. If we want to make the type of movie we made, we're not going to be able to do it on that budget again. We're going to need to find a couple more bucks. You got to move up the ladder a little bit, right? You can't go in the opposite direction.
Oh yeah, it's just like what Dov Simon says. You get to make a $20,000 movie, then you make a $50,000 movie, then you make $100,000, and then all of a sudden you're making $1 million movies. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think he starts off with in his paradigm, you make a movie for nothing. Literally, it's just your friends, whatever, and then you have to make a movie for like $10,000 or $5,000, and then you move up, sporadically. But yeah, but I know exactly where you're coming from, because that's what I've always said too is, people ask me about making stuff and why I haven't made anything in like 4 or 5 years. And my answer is because I'm an idiot and I write things and I go, holy shit, I would never be able to, even using all my methods that I talk about in this podcast, even having all the people who've talked to me and saying like, what do you have access to? What can you make today with all you have access to? I end up writing stuff that I'm like, dude, I look at one effect and I'm like, this thing would cost $50,000. Or I look at this would cost, I mean, but then again, Chris, I don't know if you ever listened to a couple other podcasts, but I mean, I'm the guy who was able to get a live working tank and also able to get fake police cars to destroy, and it wasn't that I wasn't, we couldn't make it not because we couldn't find the tank and the police cars to destroy, but because me and the director couldn't get along. So it was a very odd.
I love it. So therefore, your biography should be, I found a tank once, the Dave Bullis story,
Yeah, and I actually, because I have a friend of mine who's a mechanic, he has a contract with the police department. He had all the old police parts. We were going to doctor up all these old junkers to look like police cars from just one side, and then run a tank over them. And I got everything all squared away, and me and the director could not get along.
Wow, that's crazy, dude. But you found a tank, though. You found a tank. That's the important thing,
Yep, he's my tank guy from now on. This
tank guy, I love it. Hey, at least you have a tank guy. A lot of people don't have that. That's awesome. I love it.
I've got two things going for me. I had a pro wrestling match, and I have a tank guy.
Dude,
so that's it.
I think for most people that's enough. You know what I mean? Like, even on your tombstone, like your life is Dave Bullis. He had one pro wrestling match, and one time he found a tank. I mean, everybody's going to take a picture of that tombstone. That's going to be a classic,
As I'm buried in a the piano crate.
Yeah.
But I just become like Marlon Brando. I just eat myself into like an early grave.
Yeah. Could be worse.
We just took a very dark turn there. But Chris, I wanted to ask, where can people find the Bet movie app?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Bet, as of right now, is officially out. I think it's actually comes out today on the day of airing from July 26th on. It is on, should be on all VOD outlets like Time Warner's Movies on Demand, Comcast Movies on Demand, DirecTV Movies on Demand. And of course, iTunes, that's kind of the de facto place. And that's probably the first place I would send somebody to look for it, on iTunes. But it'll also be available for rent on Xbox, PlayStation, Fandango Now, Vudu. So basically all the digital outlets, the VOD outlets. And then we'll be doing a DVD at the end of August. And then, God willing, fingers crossed, conversation for another time, we land on Netflix or Hulu with a streaming deal. So that's the plan. But right now, if you want to see this movie, if you like comedy, if you like silly movies, if you like professional wrestling, if you just want to see what a bunch of psychotic ambitious dudes made on a small budget. Check it out. This one came from the heart, man. It's a silly movie. It's a wild movie. It's a wacky movie. It's certainly not for everybody. It's not highbrow, Dave, but in a weird way, it came from all the right places. It came from good people that worked really hard against a lot of odds. And, I think as any indie filmmaker, regardless of the content, it's the type of movie you want to download, buy it once and support it because, I think a lot of people can relate to the struggle, man. It is real and it's always cool when somebody cracks through and gets it out there. We'll see what happens, man. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's exciting. It's exciting to find out,
Yeah, and by the way, I meant to mention this is Roddy Piper's last movie, right?
Yes, it's the final appearance of Roddy Piper. He has a cameo in the film, so it is small. But that was one of the great joys of my life was having Roddy Piper in my own house, hanging out. We got to spend a wonderful day together. We really bonded. We actually became friends from the whole project and kept in touch. So when we lost him, that was it kind of affected me a little bit. It was strange to have made friends with a hero like that. And then worked with him on this and started to talk to him about other projects. And just as quickly as he came in my life, he left. But it's a real honor to me. If the only thing that this movie becomes known for historically, that's a stretch of a word, but is if it's known, that was that last movie that Roddy popped in for a couple of minutes, fine by me, man. Fine by me. I'm honored to be the guy that made Roddy Piper's last movie.
Yeah, and honestly, even if I didn't know you, Chris, I would have actually bought the movie just to see his last performance. I was, being a wrestling fan, I'm a huge Piper fan as well, and that I think that is so freaking cool. So it'll be, say, on your eulogy, they can say, hey, Chris, Chris J, he was able to hang out with Roddy Piper, and he made the Bet movie.
Yeah, there you go. That's it, man. That's all I got going for me. And of course, if anybody's listening, if they want to follow us online, you can go to the betmovie2016.com. From there, you can connect to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. We're trying to have fun with the marketing, Dave. We're really trying to get a little cult buzz on this. It's for comedy fans. It's for wrestling fans. We got some talented people in it, man. Our two lead actors, Amanda Clayton is going to be in a Martin Scorsese movie at the end of the year. She's on a Tyler Perry show right now. Our lead actor has a small role in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So you're going to see some faces in here that I truly believe in my heart in the next year or two you're going to see a lot more of. And I think we just took casting so seriously that, hopefully it's one of those films that gains momentum as it goes to Netflix. As people see it, they're like, hey, man, I saw this movie and it's kind of wild, but it's actually funny. I like to think it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's a funny movie. You don't make a comedy to not make people laugh, and that was our goal. Yeah.
I'm glad you actually brought that up. If you have the time, I had some fan questions coming through Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so one of them actually is, if there was one thing that you wanted the audience to take away from your film, what would that be?
Somebody's got to write dick and fart jokes. Why not me?
The second question is, what cameras did you shoot on, and did you shoot in 4K?
We shot on an Alexa, which we were very lucky to get, so it looks awesome. And then we did one or two pickup shots with a Red that was attached to a drone, and the guy that let us use it basically ran around and followed it underneath in terror because he was ready to catch it if it fell.
And so you didn't shoot in 4K.
I mean, that's how not technical I am. I'm being completely blunt with you, Dave. I'm not sure. I just know that we had the Alexa camera that everybody was super excited, and it looked great, especially when we put that color on it. It's like, man, this looks like a real movie, quote unquote. Mm-hmm.
It's by the way, as you go through this wonderful world of filmmaking, by the way, that's the number one question you will always ask from now. Every time you make a film, every other filmmaker is going to ask you this question. What did you shoot it on?
What did you shoot it on? Okay.
Yep, that will be the de facto question. And they're a filmmaker, because non-filmmaking people don't give two flying fucks what you shoot on. You could shoot it on a cardboard box. No, you could say, hey, I shot it with my iPhone. Oh, that's cool. Every filmmaking person is going to say, hey, what'd you shoot that on?
Okay. I just sent a text to find out, so in the future I won't look like a goob.
No, Coop. No, it's cool, man. Believe me, man. I it's all good with me. Because every time that if you go to a film festival, a film networking thing, and you show a film, what'd you shoot that on? Okay, what'd you shoot that? That's everybody. Everyone loves to ask that question. But I just think that's how I can tell if you're if you're in the industry or not, because non-industry people won't even mention it. But yeah, Chris, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I want to ask, where can people find you out online?
Yeah, if people want to see what I'm up to and all that fun stuff, the best place is probably on Twitter, and it's just at Army of Freshmen. That's the name of the band, and that's where I kind of put all my personal stuff, And I got the text message, so I'm a professional filmmaker now. Dave, you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Ready? It said we shot on an Alexa camera, and it said at the time Alexa didn't shoot 4. We shot on a 2. Does that
okay? So 2K.
2K. Okay, that's what I want to say. An Alexa 2K. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Is that a good thing, Dave, or a bad thing?
That's fine. Honestly, man,
that's most you should have hung up on me. That would be a great end of this conversation. What a fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's how I end up most conversations. What a fuck. But basically, everyone only has 1080 monitors, TVs, tablets, phones. So I mean, this whole thing about shooting 2, 4, 8, it's I don't really know if it matters at the end of the day. I think it's a great thing, honestly. If you shoot, I think we're a ways away from everyone shooting in 4K and being able to enjoy in 4K as well, because you have to crush all this stuff anyway. So my answer is, yeah, I think that's great, man.
Okay, good. I can't wait for you to see it, man. I really mean that. Out of everybody that I've been talking to publicity-wise, I think you'll have a neat perspective. Number one, because you like wrestling, in all honesty, and you'll probably understand how it's hard to work with wrestlers, but you'll understand the comedy of it. And number 2, you're a film guy. Number 3, you're from Philly, and number 4, you didn't laugh at me when I didn't know what camera it was shot on. So these are, you're the type of guy that needs to see this film.
Yeah, I'm gonna put on my PJs. I'm gonna fire up the old Xbox. I'm gonna check it out.
Cool. Awesome, Dave. And thank you so much for your time, dude. And again, I do listen to the podcast, and I always enjoy your conversations. I like how you have a lot of variety of people on the show. You're not like kind of one of those conceited podcasts that kind of just rip on people, and they just kind of make you sort of, I don't know. It kind of seems like bitter dudes that don't make movies that want to rip on people that do. That's not you. You're always so supportive to your guests, and I always learn something. So I am a fan, man. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, I appreciate that, Chris. Like I said in the pre-interview, man, I always try to stay positive. I always want to make this a place of positivity and have as many interesting, diverse people on as I can. But having said that, I want to say thank you very much for coming on, Chris. And I really do wish you the best with the Bet movie. I am going to be checking it out Tuesday, July the 26th. It is released on all of the channels that Chris was talking about. You can always, everybody, find me, DaveBullis.com, Twitter at Dave_Bullis. And I want to say thank you to everyone who always tweets in questions, because I seem to have traction with people sending in questions, which I'm really, really pumped about. I love making this interactive.
Yeah, that's great. And like I said, you got to update the business card. Dave Bullis, podcaster, filmmaker, screenwriter, and a guy that can find you a fucking tank. I mean, be the best business card ever. Just put your face in a tank on it,
Well, I can find you anything you want. Really, any type of car, because the guy also did stuff for Law Abiding Citizen. So all those cars in there. And when you see Jamie Foxx take off that tarp or that old classic Buick, that was his car. Maseratis, ice cream trucks, tanks, cement mixers, and buses, whatever. This guy, I know a guy who does all this stuff. He's amazing.
Badass, dude. Badass.
Boats,
I love it.
Jets. Yeah, it's great. I love having him. I should get him on the podcast, by the way. But anyways, but Chris, honestly, man, I want to say thank you so much for coming on, and I'm going to make sure to check out the Bet movie.
Cool. My pleasure, Dave. You take care, and thanks everybody for listening. It really does mean a lot. Please check out the film and say hi. Let us know what you thought.
Awesome. Take care, Chris.
Okay, take care, brother.
See you, man.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.